The Defining Decade, Why Your 20s Matter. Let's get into today's book by author Meg Jay. Meg Jay is a psychologist who has a PhD in, you guessed it, psychology, and she wrote this book based on her therapy sessions that she would have with her clients. She was a therapist, and her main client base was 20-something-year-olds. So over the years of her giving therapy, she noticed similar themes happening within her clients and similar traps that her clients were falling into. And so she wrote this book based on all that history, all that data that she has gathered about 20-something-year-olds, how their mind works, what problems they run into, and made this book to prevent 20-something-year-olds from falling into those same traps that her clients fell into, okay? So it really is aimed at 20-something-year-olds, and the intention is for people of my age to read it and learn from it. So I found it to be very useful, helpful, and most importantly, credible advice, because she's a psychologist. She has the education to back up her claims and, the history and the living experience to back up these claims, because her clients were 20-something-year-olds. She's hearing it firsthand, their problems, their complaints, and, themes and parallels that they run into. So I'm going to get into the main points that she made, which is really just 2 points about what one can do, what the self can do as a 20-something-year-old to be a healthy individual for the long haul. So the reason why I say this, the self, is because she goes into relationships and other factors in life, but really that would be too long of a video. So I'm only going to break down what she said about the self. Okay, so let's get into it. The first thing she said is that you need to prevent amorality from happening right now. What is amorality? Amorality is living at the same pace, at the same pitch, from teens until death. Okay, it's never changing, never really changing who you are, never changing how you move about life. You're doing the same thing. You're repeating the same habits, right? Because habits, they die hard. They're hard to break. And so what makes us fall into this trap of amorality really are our parents and people that are above us, people that we look up to. Because here's the thing with parents, and what I notice about a lot of older people. This is just my own insight. This isn't, sorry, I need to make this clear. This isn't what she said, but they're always saying, hey, you're just a kid, you have so much time, or, oh, you don't need to worry about that, your career, whatever, it'll all come, enjoy your youth, live it up. My favorite of what they say, and what has always made me a little bit skeptical, is, oh, you don't have to worry about what you eat. You're young, you have a fast metabolism, you just burn it off, you need to worry about that stuff when you're older. That's when your metabolism slows down and the weight really starts piling on. And that has always raised a red flag for me instantly, because I've always come back at them with, well, the reason why you're having to worry about it now is because you didn't take the preventative measures when you were young, right? That's why it's such a concern now. Whereas if you were to have planted a good foundation of eating healthy, then it would stick for the long run, because you're planting that seed to make it a habit, and that discipline that you have now will be long lasting. And because you're planting that seed, you're making an effort, and the sooner you start, then the more long lasting it'll be, the more of a habit that it'll be ingrained within you. I'm sorry, I'm like word vomiting, but that's kind of what I'm getting at. You're picking up what I'm putting down, okay? So that's always kind of raised a red flag. I'm always like, yeah, well, the reason why it's a problem now is because you didn't make it a problem when you were young. You waited until it was a problem, okay? So that's kind of what she said in this section of amorality. Old habits die hard. We become our habits. Now in the present day, I feel like another trigger of this is social media. Living at the same pace from teens until death, because we are so triggered by what we see online, and we get into this competitive state, right? We're like, oh my gosh, that person, they have such this luxurious life, and I want to make it seem like I'm having that luxurious life. I want to make it seem like I'm having just as much fun as they are. So it's a little bit competitive, and What happens also is fear of missing out, because you see all these other people having fun and you don't want to make yourself feel like you're not included, right? It's just this agonizing feeling of, oh my gosh, like they're really going to create that memory and that experience without me. And I can't fathom that. I need to be a part of that. And so you kind of go down a slippery slope, because yes, while it's true that you should be creating memorable experiences and not getting too in your head about the future, there needs to be a healthy balance. You can't always be partying and living it up, because let me ask you something. What are you celebrating? And this is something I might even asking myself. That's why I'm recording myself, and I'm gonna watch this on video for myself, because I have kind of recently fallen into this trap of party, and kind of have to sit back and realize, am I even really celebrating anything? What is there to celebrate? Life? Okay, like come on, that's not really a good enough excuse. I want to say right now this sentence that she said that really put light bulbs in my head and made fireworks burst in my mind, and I think it's really, really insightful. It makes you think. Habitually acting on FOMO leads to a midlife crisis, which is the realization that while you were so busy making sure you didn't miss out on anything, you were setting yourself up to miss out on some of the most important things of all. Ain't that the truth, right? And we're gonna tie some other concepts that I'm gonna explain soon into this concept of FOMO and, missing out on yourself and your own needs in service of something outside of you, when really that doesn't have as much value as what you need for yourself. Okay, so let's bring this topic back. Now, the second point that she brings up is you need to have a lot of importance, or you need to prioritize identity capital. Now, this kind of ties back into the first point, because identity capital is just everything that makes you who you are, your interests, your habits, and what triggers it is, like Amorality, the people that you look up to. Where, parents, they kind of can influence you to stay at the same pitch and the same pace, because they're like, oh yeah, you're so young, you have so much time. Educators, teachers can influence us to never change our identity capital, just because of the system that we are a part of, the school system, where we're so used to knowing how to get an A in school, right? By getting good grades, studying hard, memorizing, but there's no syllabus on how to get an A in life. So that's why a lot of graduates, they enter post-grad depression, because there's no rules and guidelines on how to win at life, right? It's just like, okay, you graduated, yay, but it's like, now what? And when you enter the workforce, what's really valued are your skills, not necessarily your ability to memorize. Sure, memorization can tie into that, but not really, not at the extent that it ties into being successful in school. And so we go through this kind of identity crisis, because we don't really know who we are anymore. Everything that mattered to us, getting good grades, right? Being part of a team, and, maybe, your sorority, if you were part of that, all those things that you thought were so valuable and made up so much of who you are, doesn't mean anything anymore. And so, yeah, it causes you to be depressed, because who are you? You don't know who you are. So make the commitment, she says, to know your interests. And this ties into breaking away from the herd, because she brings up the psych concept called the concept of love the same. When you have your friend group, there's a strong tie being in a homogeneous clique, right? But that could lead to groupthink. If you're always with the same people, doing the same things, only doing things with your group, and not really changing groups or putting yourself out there to meet new people, then you're gonna miss out on opportunities. Because if you don't know who you are outside of the group, you are only going to look at life through the lens of the group. So an opportunity that could be actually really good for you, you're not gonna know it's good for you, because if the group has a different perception of what that opportunity means to them, and you're part of that group, you're not gonna know it's a good opportunity. So you're gonna miss out what's good and beneficial and meaningful for your life. So make the commitment to explore your interests, and that ties into knowing your values, right? Because your values tie into your interests, and, play around with different things. So you really have this sense of individuality, and you know who you are as a person, not who you identify with and who you are a part of. So in a nutshell, to prevent not knowing who you are, you need to be committed to exploring yourself, exploring your interests, and this takes the courage to have the perception that fear of missing out is really fear of missing out on what could be good for you and your needs, not fear of missing out on what other people are doing. And if you make it a habit to commit to your interests and to ingrain this perception, this newfound perception of FOMO in your mind, then you're not going to fall into the trap that a lot of 20-something-year-olds fall into, which is living at the same pace, same pitch from teens into death, and never knowing who they really are as a person. I hope that this video helped. Let me know if you're not a 20-something-year-old and if you agreed with this advice. And I really highly recommend that you read the book because it ties in these concepts with personal examples that maybe you can relate to. So it really is good, credible, most importantly, credible advice because she's a psychologist. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video. I'll see you next time.